Jesus told a parable in Luke 18 about a Pharisee and a tax collector who came to the temple to pray. And the Bible tells us that Jesus directed this parable at people who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and they despised other people. And so this is the focal point of the parable. And in this parable, Jesus chooses two individuals who couldn't be more unlike each other. One is a Pharisee who prides himself on his religious observances. The other is a tax collector. He's basically a secular Jew. The tax collectors were really despised by religious Jews because they were considered sellouts. They were basically working for the Roman government and making themselves rich at the expense of their own people. Moreover, tax collectors were really looked down upon by the religious community as very worldly, very carnal, just living a partying lifestyle. And Jesus himself, remember, was criticized for hanging out with tax collectors. And for example, he was invited to Matthew's party in Matthew chapter 9, and the Pharisees couldn't believe it. They criticized Jesus for this. They said, look, why is Jesus hanging out with tax collectors? And, he's going to their parties. And Jesus pointed out, I didn't come for the righteous, but to call sinners to repentance. And he compared himself to a physician. Jesus said, those who are sick need a doctor, not those who are healthy. And that's why he said, I came to call sinners to repentance. Here in this parable, we see a similar theme. Two individuals. One who is so confident, he has self-confidence, confidence in his own righteousness based upon what he's doing. And we have to understand it goes beyond just a works mentality. We can't really say that the Jews of Jesus' time, the Pharisees and the religious rulers, that they thought that they were working their way to heaven. They thought they were going to be saved by their works. Rather, what we see is they were confident that they were in covenant relationship with God. And these outward works were evidence of the fact that they were faithful to the covenant. So they really believed that they were saved by faithfulness to the covenant of God. But Jesus points out that their religious pride is based upon self-confidence, not God-confidence. On the other hand, we see with the tax collector, he comes and he truly humbles himself before God. Whereas with the Pharisee, we see the Pharisee praying with himself. And this is an interesting phrase, praying with himself. It's like Jesus is saying, this guy's having a conversation with himself. It's kind of self-talk. He's not really talking to God, he's really talking with himself. But the tax collector, on the other hand, is truly talking to God. In other words, his words are really getting God's attention because he comes with the right heart. He comes with true humility, true brokenness. He's not just looking to get off the hook. He really wants to be right with God. Interestingly, Jesus tells us that this man, rather than the Pharisee, went home justified. It doesn't say that he went home with an assurance of salvation. He went home feeling good about himself. If anybody went home feeling that way, it's probably the Pharisee. But in God's perspective, the tax collector was justified. In other words, God received the tax collector's prayer and he was justified by the grace of God. This tax collector had true faith in God's grace, not as a means of gaining some assurance of salvation so he can get on with his life, but rather that he could live under the care and protection of the grace of God.